The C8C is EzViz's first outdoor wireless motorized pan and tilt camera. It sports 1080p Full HD, 2.4 GHz wireless connectivity, AI person detection, 3 nighttime modes, night vision, color night vision, and smart color night vision. It can leverage a local micro SD card capable of using up to 256 gigs. And if you would like, it can access EzViz's Cloud Play storage. It also has an IP65 rating to ensure that it'll be able to handle the weather, and it can integrate with Home Assistant. Best of all, it doesn't require a monthly subscription. Welcome back to SlackerLabs. My name is Jeff. When EzViz recently reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in taking a look at the C8C, I said, heck yeah! This is EzViz's first outdoor wireless pan and tilt camera after all. But before we get into the details, I want to remind you that EzViz had no influence over the content of this video. Well, except for providing the product, of course. Speaking of product, this camera looks like it belongs in a casino, not out on a back deck. But since I don't live in a casino, I mounted it on my back deck. Installing the C8C was easy, and the mounting bracket comes with a couple of different options. This camera does require mains power though, so you'll want to make sure that you're mounting it close to a power outlet or you're able to run a wire to it. And although it does have an Ethernet connection, it doesn't have power over Ethernet, which may be one of the only drawbacks I saw with this camera. Once you have it mounted and powered on, you use the EzViz app to set it up. All you need to do is create an account, add your Wi-Fi credentials, and then scan the QR code that's on the mounting arm. After that, it's time to head into the app and fine-tune the configuration. Most of the options in this app are your standard security camera options, but I did want to call out a few. Like, there's an option for disabling the audio in both the recordings and the live video feed, which could help you avoid legal issues depending on where you've mounted this camera. This 360 view is interesting as well. The way this works is this camera would take a 360-degree image of its space, and then you would mark in that image the location of your sensors. Then when any of those sensors trigger, this camera would turn so that it's pointed at that location, which I think is a pretty cool feature. And the other option I want to call out here is this switch for image encryption. Anytime you add a security camera to your smart home, who has access to the live feed and the recordings is going to be something you need to consider. And while there's not an option to have this camera completely local, this option does put another wall up between you and people on the outside. Unfortunately, to integrate this camera into your existing smart home, you're probably going to have to disable this option. But we'll talk more about that when we get into integrations. The C8C can record its recordings on a local SD card for those wanting to keep their recordings local. But if you have a need or want to have those recordings in the cloud, you can also leverage EzViz's cloud service. And the cloud service does seem competitively priced. I especially like that they offer a 3-day option for this cloud storage, because I don't see a need to pay for a week of video storage in the cloud. If there's ever an issue that one of my cameras records, I'm going to be downloading that video so I can keep a local copy forever. And 3 days is more than enough time for me to do that. In any case, if you're interested in the cloud storage, the prices are as follows. For a single camera, the monthly storage is going to set you back $109 a year, or $11 a month. For 7 days of storage, it's going to set you back $60 a year, or $6 a month. And for the 3-day storage, it'll be $40 a year, or $4 a month. And if you have multiple cameras, there are multiple camera plans available. In any case, you don't need a cloud subscription, or a monthly subscription for that matter, to use this camera. So that's a nice change. The video quality of the C8C is pretty good. The only issue I found with the video recordings is there's no button to click and download the footage from the SD card to a local device. Although I'm guessing this is standard for EzViz and not specific to this camera. To get a copy of the video off of the SD card, you'll have to open up the app and play the recorded video. Then you click this recording button, which then saves a copy to your device. So if you have a really long video that you want a copy of, you're going to be sitting here for a long time. But outside of that, again, the video quality is pretty good. Here's the comparison between my Arlo Pro 2 camera that's mounted nearby and the C8C. It's perhaps not the best comparison because the Arlo Pro 2 is an older camera, but it does give you a sense of what an upgrade might look like if you have the Arlo Pro 2s and you're looking to update your camera. If you're looking to use this as a security camera, the alerting options are going to be important. And the C8C can alert on both general motion, and it can try to cut down on the noise and just focus on human shapes. Although honestly, in the time that I've had this camera, the human detection seems to go off almost as much as the general motion. But when there are humans in the field of view, this camera does seem to identify them. I wanted to briefly talk about security, because this camera isn't completely local. And I know that we've already covered the image encryption option, but I thought it was important to call it out again. And apparently that switch does do something, because when it's on, nothing outside of the EzViz app can view the live feed. Of course, no product is perfect, so let's talk about where I think the C8C could be improved. The first one is the download video option. I find it really weird that a security camera with an SD card option doesn't have the ability to just click a button and download the entire video off of that card. While you may be able to pull the SD card out of the camera and get the video that way, but based on where this camera is mounted, I don't expect a lot of people to be climbing up on a ladder just to remove the SD card to get some footage. And second, I wish this camera would pan to where it senses motion. From what I've seen, when there's a person in the frame, this camera does a good job of identifying that object. And when it's in live view, it does say it will auto track. But in my test so far, I haven't got this camera to follow me as I've moved through the field of view. Again, that may be due to the area that I have this camera mounted in. All in all though, I didn't find anything hardware-wise that would prevent me from buying this camera. Definitely nothing that keeps it from being a good security camera. Of course, if you're looking to augment your existing smart home, then integrations are going to be critical. This camera can connect to both Google and Amazon using the EzViz skill on both those platforms. There's also an EzViz integration for Home Assistant. And since I like Home Assistant, let's start there. The Home Assistant integration is dependent on the cloud service. I ran into a hiccup setting up the Home Assistant integration though, because I had used my Google account to set up my EzViz account, and that account login doesn't work with the integration. At least, not for me. So I created a standalone EzViz account and then shared my camera with that account, which is probably the best option anyway. Home Assistant found my camera and gave me quite a few entities to work with. I'm running the 2021 11 version of Home Assistant as of this recording, and this breakdown of entities into categories is new. So if your screen doesn't look like this, once you upgrade to the 2021 11 version of Home Assistant, it will. Anyway, we do get access to the motion sensor for this camera in Home Assistant. But it doesn't appear that we can turn on or off the motion detection with this camera from inside Home Assistant. And while we do get quite a few options in here, most of these switches when I flipped ended in failure. But once you have this integration installed, Home Assistant will eventually prompt you to install a different EzViz integration. This one contains the RTSP feed from the camera. This is using the local RTSP URL to get its live feed, so at least this part is all local. To log into this integration, you're going to need to have the device code, which is printed on the QR sticker on the mounting arm. But once you have that set up, you can set up a picture glance card on your Lovelace dashboard that contains the feed from this camera. Since I was unable to arm and disarm the motion detection from inside Home Assistant, I tried Amazon. After setting up the EzViz skill on the Amazon Echo, I was able to build a routine that looked like it could trigger using the motion sensor from the camera. But I never got that to actually work without me manually kicking off the routine. It also doesn't appear to have any way to turn off or turn on the motion detection either. And while it does say it will support live view on an Echo Show, I don't have an Echo Show to test that. So the Amazon skill in my setup doesn't really give me anything that I don't already have in Home Assistant. So let's head over to Google. After installing the Google Home skill for the EzViz, it appears that on this platform it has a little more functionality. I can pull up the live feed on my Google Home. But again, to use that, you're going to have to turn off the image encryption. Otherwise, it's going to tell you that it doesn't have access to the feed. But the live view feed on the Google Home doesn't require a cloud subscription. I do like that I can ask the Google Home to turn off the camera, which disables the motion detection. The only sad part here is that I can't trigger a Google routine from inside Home Assistant. So this feature doesn't really do me any good since Home Assistant is what's powering my smart home. And with that goes the last hope of having any kind of cool automation in Home Assistant. Video quality on this camera is good. And the EzViz app is easy to use. In terms of issues that might give you pause on purchasing this camera, the integrations are going to be the big ones. If you're all in on Google and have Google Home as the center of your smart home, then this camera is going to integrate well with your existing smart home tech. I suspect the same goes for Amazon smart homes. If you're an Apple HomeKit user, I'm not real sure that this camera is going to work for you. But on EzViz's website, they do mention that their cameras are HomeKit compatible. If I get any clarifying information on that point, I will make sure that I put that in the description. And for Home Assistant users, you can add this camera to Home Assistant and get access to the motion sensors, which means that you can have automations that trigger anytime this camera senses motion for announcements or even possibly Dude's imaging processing. But being able to arm and disarm those motion sensors from inside of Home Assistant, like when the family leaves and when they come home, would have been awesome. That said, if you're in the market for an outdoor pan and tilt camera, you can pick this one up on Amazon for $75. There's an affiliate link in the description of this video, which of course adds no cost to you and supports SlackerLabs. Once again, a huge thank you to EzViz for sending out this C8C for me to take a look at. If you want to support SlackerLabs and our mission to help you automate the boring stuff, you can find a link in the description to the official SlackerLabs t-shirt store, where you can pick up some of the very t-shirts I wear in these videos. I mean, not like the actual t-shirts I've worn in these videos. T-shirts that are printed on demand specifically for you. Or if you prefer a cashless transaction, let me know you found value in this video by giving me the finger and hitting that like button. And consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already for more smart home content like this. As always, thanks for taking time out of your home automation projects to watch mine. Until next time, go automate the boring stuff.